Hello, my friends out there in Creating Victory Land. Welcome back to the Creating Victory podcast here with your host, Amy J. And what we do here is get over it and make it happen. And no one, I think, on the planet perhaps has done this better than my friend and Shiro, Miss Mindy Shierer, who is the founder of the Runway of Dreams Foundation, which I'll let her share about. She has a 20-year background in fashion, and y'all know I love me some fashion. She worked for brands like INC, which happens to be one of my favorites, Saks Fifth Avenue, before she started this journey to create adaptive wear and accessibility of fashion for those of us with seen and unseen disabilities. So I personally thank you because with issues and deformities, can't find shoes that don't look like grandma's shoes. So, Mindy, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I have to interject one thing before we start. I heard you say that you wanted to be Betsy Johnson.
I did. Yes, that's
So did
accurate. And
I.
I'm dating myself, so I'm
I
definitely showing my age with that.
I love her and thank you for that because I was squealing when I heard that. So please share a little bit about your fashion history and how the Runway of Dreams came about. I know it's a very personal story and I'm so inspired and so will all of our listeners.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. I was so excited and honored to be a part of this. So my journey started, I really was that little girl that I only had one vision, and that was to be a fashion designer. And I didn't want to just be a fashion designer. I wanted to be a global brand like Betsy Johnson. She was, as you said, she was my style icon. I just loved everything about her. So I majored in fashion design. I studied in Italy. I was doing well in the industry. But life had a different path for me as my middle child, Oliver, was born with a rare form of muscular dystrophy. His version is called rigid spine. He
Mm,
is actually one of 70 cases in the world.
wow.
So they are learning about this version of it as he is growing up. So it was a really wild journey, and just there are no rule books on being a parent, and there's certainly no rule books on being a parent of a child with a disability. And we knew early on that he was going to struggle with everyday tasks, one of which is the very thing I love more than anything, and that's getting dressed every day. For
Mm,
Oliver, it was a daily reminder of what he could not do, which
mm,
are buttons and zippers, putting on shoes, tying laces, all of the
wow.
everything that goes into being able to dress yourself independently. So when he was of school age, he wore sweatpants, and usually his t-shirt or sweatshirt every single day, because it was the only way we knew he'd be able to go to the bathroom on his own, wear his leg braces because they were difficult to fit under jeans,
Yeah.
until he was 8 years old, and he came home from school and said, "Mom, I want to wear jeans like everybody else gets to wear, and I don't understand why I don't have choice in what I wear." And it truly, Amy, was a kick in the stomach moment, not only as a mom, but as somebody that dedicated her life to the fashion industry, that I couldn't solve it. This was back in 2013, and there were zero mainstream brands in the adaptive space. There were smaller brands that were called adaptive, but most of them were really focused on the aging population, or it looked very medicinal. There
Grandma's.
was nothing stuck out there at all. So I looked at that little 8-year-old face and I said, "You bet you're wearing jeans to school tomorrow." And I admittedly cried probably for the first couple hours as I sat at my kitchen table staring at a pair of jeans that I was going to modify for him. and pulled myself together and then ripped them apart, put them back together in the probably the worst designs I've ever done. But nonetheless, the next morning when he woke up, it was the first time he ever dressed himself
Wow.
independently with anything that had buttons or zippers in it. And the immediate transformation that came over him was palpable and it was life-changing for me. That if these jeans that were really not that good gave him such an injection of confidence, how
Yes.
in the world did the 1.3 billion people on our planet that identify with having a disability, how are they managing clothing challenges? And it was really at that moment that I decided to start the Runway of Dreams Foundation, to be able to work with the fashion and beauty industries to help them understand that this population has to be included
Yes, we do.
in the fashion conversation, in the design conversation, in how we are really reframing who people with disabilities are in our world.
You're giving me chills as a person with visual and uh, seen and unseen disabilities, having had a lot of these challenges myself with the shoes and the deformed leg and things that will fit, or having, I relate to the braces when I've had fixators. I couldn't find pants. And at one point, I was going with my then boyfriend to see Madonna, which was a dream. And I had this huge fixator on my leg, and I would just cry because I couldn't. It was amazing. So I personally appreciate everything you've done. And you talk a lot about what you touched on, the power of fashion building confidence for anyone, but especially, I have our whole campaign of Love Your Scars and Wear It, Live It, and how everybody should and could and will be empowered to look and feel their best. And this is what I'm watching you do. So talk a little bit about what you've seen over the years. I mean, you're partnered. I'll let you share some of the brands you're working with and how that came to be, because I know you didn't knock on the door. You tore the door down, girl, which is what I love about you. So share how you got into some of these rooms, because you
Well,
are the epitome of a trailblazer.
oh my gosh, thank you. But the reality is, Amy, that when there was nothing out there, I had nothing to lose. Anything that I
Hmm.
could even make a little bit better
Right.
was better than it was the day before.
Yeah.
So I really did everything very methodically in that once I decided to start Runway of Dreams, I knew that I couldn't go to the industry unless I really knew what I was talking about. And at that point, Oliver was 8. I'd only had 8 years of experience with one type of disability.
Yeah.
And I could not go to the industry without saying, I really understand now where we can make change happen. So I did a year's worth of research. I went to schools, I held and facilities and hospitals, I held focus groups, I
Wow.
did surveys. I talked to as many different people as I possibly could that had multiple very different types of disabilities because I needed to understand the world outside of my world with Oliver. I needed to understand what your world was like, or someone with Down syndrome, or the deaf community, etc. So once that year was over, and I was really able to extrapolate out all of the data that I had acquired over that year, I was able to see the commonalities
Mm.
between vastly different disabilities and clothing challenges. So that's when I developed modifications that could be implemented into mainstream clothes. And that's when I decided that it was time to utilize every contact I ever had in the industry. And truth be told, I got a lot of no's. I got a lot of good for you. What a great idea.
Mm,
Wishing you luck. We'll
no.
be cheering from the sidelines, but if no mainstream brand has ever done this before, there must be a reason. So we're gonna pass.
Wow.
Um, I mean,
Brilliant.
even still
Oh,
today, like, oh, 10 years later, the fact that they actually said there must be a reason, but they didn't know the reason was
wow.
absurd.
Yeah.
So fortunately, though, I got myself in front of the team at Tommy Hilfiger,
Mm,
and I bought every piece of their collection. I actually bought two of every piece of their collection. One piece I kept completely as it was, and the other I modified. Like this shirt behind me. This is one of the first ones that we did with Tommy, that it is actually their typical button-down Tommy Hilfiger shirt that just has magnets on the back of the button, so it literally closes on its own. And I modified one part of the collection and kept the other collection as it was so that they could see that not only do they look identical, but that if I could do this, they could
they
certainly
could
do
do
it
it.
and probably worlds better.
Right.
So fortunately, they were the very first brand to come on board. And in 2016, we made fashion history by creating the first ever mainstream adaptive clothing line with Tommy Hilfiger. That is now Tommy Adaptive and a part of their portfolio. And that partnership literally opened the floodgates to
Yeah.
so many other brands that suddenly started waking
Oh,
up and saying, wow, Tommy did it, we should be doing it, or are we behind, and why didn't we think of this, and all of that.
I want to segue out of fashion for a second into this. A lot of us artists are entrepreneurs and have other ideas. And in this immediate gratification social media culture, we think that it just happens. And I really appreciate you sharing that it was a year of research and then a lot of time that these things, especially this mission-based kind of movement and that the hesitation and just not letting that, when you have a mission, which you do, it takes time and it's not, we just don't see it on Instagram woo woo. It's not like that. So if you're
Exactly, exactly. Adaptive clothing.
yeah, here we are. If you're an entrepreneur, you have an idea, and I have a couple of friends that are idea peoples, and they think, I'm gonna make $1 million. And I said, well, where's the product? And we're going through this now. But speaking of the fashion, you landed at Fashion Week. You now have one of the biggest shows. I was honored to participate. That was a bucket list for me on the runway at
You
Fashion
rocked it.
Week. That was really fun. And love your scars, bitches. So,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
see the kids, and I mean, you work with major brands now, Zappos, JCPenney, Target, Victoria's Secret was your supporting sponsor. You know, I what you're doing for people like me in terms of the space to feel sexy and confident, and I get to play too on top of $1 billion industry because there are a lot of us in the world. How did the outside of your tenacity and just making it happen, get to Fashion Week? Because that's such a wonderful platform to share visually and streaming and all that. To see that on the runway, the first time I saw it, it was, oh my God, those people are all like me. Wow, look at them
Mm.
go. I want to be up there.
I would say it really was the crossroads of everything that I was incredibly passionate about. So I had the background in fashion. I did a lot of work in, developing fashion shows in general before this all, my world collided, as well as, the personal aspect of it, that exactly what you said, that I really wanted to open up a world for Oliver in that he had zero friends with disabilities. He was the only kid, probably, that was so. visibly disabled in his elementary school, even in high school. I mean, few and far between. I wanted a community
Mm.
for him that he could feel like, holy, these are my people. I
People, yeah.
don't feel different. Today, in this, like when you were behind the scenes and that whole day that you are surrounded by people that truly understand
At it.
what your life is like. Like I is, as much as I can say it is, its own challenges to be the parent of and to not be able to do anything to cure your child is
Mm.
heart stabbing on
Yeah.
a daily basis. But I don't know what it's like to be on Oliver's journey. You know what it's like to be on Oliver's journey and to be able to create that both personally and professionally is a gift. I feel so lucky that I get to be a part of this. But so not only, did I have the personal drive, but I knew professionally that if you want to be someone or do something that is going to make an impact in the fashion industry, you have got to be a part of Fashion Week. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. That is the big show
Mhm.
of the industry. So it was, a fight for sure to really get a good fight. I'm not saying that anybody necessarily pushed
Yeah.
back, but it was everything from finding a venue that is truly accessible, that I could
In New
put on a
York.
show in New York, that could, house people with disabilities. The backstage of our shows is actually almost as big as the front of the house because we need so much room for people with disabilities and all the medical devices and caregivers and all of that. That was a challenge, even finding a venue that could hold what the vision was. But then, being a part of the fashion calendar is a huge, huge step that once we were deemed that we were authentically a part of Fashion Week was game changing for the population. It was like a real win that we are being considered this as important as every other show during Fashion Week. So that is something that is absolutely on the vision board of I'm hoping that we can take this to fashion weeks across the world.
World. Amazing. And you will because you're Mindy.
Thank
So I have no doubts. And having seen it
you.
both as a producer and as a model, what that entails, if you out there have never produced anything, it's a huge job even without all of that and all the needs of all the varying situations was really, and watching everyone, especially the little ones, just laugh and smile and get made up in their clothes and their little purses. And oh, it was so amazing. So thank you. And, this is truly taking art. It's kind of a politically correct thing right now where you have this mission, but you're using the power of fashion to change the times, to change diversity, equity, and inclusion, to open this up, to say to other corporate or business entities, look, we are here. So thank you for that. And how has that been continuing on with the media and the coverage? I know the press can be sticky in how they cover things, keeping the mission, focused. And it's such a huge win using the power of fashion to change society. I mean, this is what you're doing because I know as a person with disabilities in New York, it's one of the most inaccessible cities ever. I mean, the subway, or if the elevator is there, it's not working. I can't climb stairs. So
Mm.
what do? I have to go back uptown, get the elevator. I mean, it's amazing to me. So talk a little bit about that in terms of your experience and how this movement, I mean, you're using fashion to change that, wake people
And
up.
it was very purposeful. I love that you're asking this question because it was very purposeful in that when I decided to take this on, this tiny little goal of changing the fashion industry, um, I had kind of a divide in the road that I could develop my own collection or I could go after the big brands and educate on the huge amount of people that they are missing out on and have them understand that people with disabilities are consumers too.
We
And
are.
obviously I chose the path of going to the brands because fashion is a culture changer. It is by definition. And I mean, you could go back historically and look how
Mhm.
fashion and the way that clothing is being worn or the styles or the trends literally creates culture.
Yes.
And that is was to me going to be the way that we could make change, real change, significant societal change happen by utilizing an industry that already is doing that.
Yes.
And that's really why I took that path, but it really was methodical in why I wanted the big guys to really show that they are dedicated to this consumer base.
It's amazing. I'm so inspired, even things, the stores themselves for a lot of these retailers with the steps or the elevators are always hidden or the pathways are so narrow or the dark, as a person with a vision disability, forget it. Everything is so dark. Hello, can someone turn on the lights? Because it's dangerous. People want their
It
own,
is.
but I can fall and trip because I don't see. So it's even on that level, baby steps because change is slow over time, as we know. But 10 years you've been going. So looking ahead to the next 10, nice segue. What's in your docket, Mindy? I'm so excited having experienced it.
Well, I am also super excited about the next decade. And it is really we've been really planning for what is next. And again, on the theme of really making change happen, the greatest and most important way to make change happen is next generations.
Yes.
So we are putting a very big focus on up and coming design students, design programs, really helping schools that have design majors have classes that are teaching students on adaptive and who people with disabilities are and how to
Mm.
design for them. And most importantly, including them in the design process, including people with disabilities into the design process. Because, and I say this all the time, there is not a designer, a marketer, a publicist, the list could go on, that authentically can be in this space without including people with disabilities at every step of the value chain. And that's myself included. I can't design for the population at large. That
Right.
would be, I mean, first of all, incredibly egotistical, but also not authentic. I need your voice and the voices of the population to say, let's think about it this way. Let's try to, let's take that idea and maybe modify it this way. And also, it isn't just the product, it's how it's being marketed, it's
Mhm.
how it's being described, it's
Yeah.
image descriptions, it's all of the things that it's so much more than just the product. And we need the population by our side to help get this out into the world.
And we are very grateful as the population of, oh, my shoulder is missing a muscle. I can't reach the bra strap. The Victoria's Secret thing. I said, yes, please. So I love that you're looking past the, quote unquote glam of it, which is where this culture tends to focus a lot, and onto the back end and I actually didn't know that the education is even more inspiring to get in the classrooms and say, hey,
Yes.
from the consumer point, but also functionality, because it's frustrating out there, when you can't find a pair of shoes that isn't a grandma shoe. I'm 50 something years old. I want to look cute just because I'm deformed.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
what about me, which is a separate podcast. But anything else? How's Oliver doing now? And any closing words to our fashion entrepreneur? Oh, and if you want to find Mindy, runwayofdreams.org. She is on social. And we can't leave without talking about Gamut. I got so excited about the
Thank
fashion.
you.
Mindy also has a management talent company for persons with disabilities, which I also appreciate on a lot of levels. Not only be able to get work, but so much of the time when I get to a set, either there's no food I can eat, or it's dark, or there's stairs, or hello, this is a liability for you guys on top of everything else. So share a little bit about that movement. And
That actually came very organically as when those floodgates opened and all these other brands started reaching out to Runway Dreams, it became very clear that there needed to be an entity, a company that could help support the brands on the journey
Mhm.
of creating adaptive products, not necessarily just for the fashion industry, but truly for any consumer
Yeah.
product company. And again, integrating people with disabilities. So in 2019, I launched Gamut Management, which is a consulting, talent, and accreditation company that really works to help brands, again, adapt or modify their products or services for people with disabilities. And we do that by being with them at every step of the process. So as you mentioned, Victoria's Secret worked hand in hand with Gamut in developing the adaptive bras and panties that are now on the market. And we did that by really bringing in our talent pool. We had over 200 women with all different types of disabilities that were intimately, pun intended, involved in the product and testing it and giving feedback on it and what worked, what didn't work, all of that, including the again, weighing in on the copy, weighing in on how it's going to be marketed. People, women with disabilities were in the marketing campaign, and we got to hear from them about what this meant
Mm.
as a woman with a disability to finally have a product that authentically was developed with and for people with disabilities. And by the way, it's doing so well in the general public as well, because who in the world wants to close their bra in the back with hooks? I mean, it's preposterous. Having magnetic front bras is amazing for everyone.
Yes.
Um, that is really where we also hope that adaptive products gets to, that it's really innovation. It's innovating products and how they are being creative. And the more people that are able to wear the same product, that's going to be so much better for the sales and the brand and all of that. So, and then the third part of what Gamut does is, again, I love this is probably one of my favorite parts of working with the population. They're very clear on what they want and
Ken
need,
and Ken
and it
too.
yeah, and having an authentic certification mark or something that could go on a product and say this product was developed and approved by people with disabilities was so important. We constantly were getting emails. How can we trust Tommy Hilfiger? How do we know that Target isn't just putting magnets in their product and calling it adaptive?
Right.
So how do we do that in our mainstream world? We have certification marks. We have gluten free. We have animal free testing. We have organic. We have a million. So in 2022, Gamut launched the first ever certification mark. Here's an example of it. We launched with Adidas. It's called the Gamut Seal of Approval. And this certification mark verifies that Adidas went through a certification process, was verified by third party people with disabilities, PTs and OTs, experts in the space that verified that that product is usable for people with disabilities and was created with people with disabilities so that you don't have to do the research. You can feel comfortable and trust that Adidas did this the right way.
And as I'm breathing a sigh of relief, just listening to you, thank you. Anything else you want to share with our world? I'm incredibly inspired. You guys definitely find Mindy, support Runway of Dreams, donate to them. I've seen firsthand for myself. I still have those amazing clothes I got from Kohl's. Thank you very. I said, I'm wearing Kohl's. I feel so cool. So the cute little red bag and the sneakers that I could actually wear. Holy moly. I'm all about the sneakers. So find Mindy, runwayofdreams.org, donate, get involved. Anything else you want to share with our people?
Absolutely. Beside thanking you so much for having me on your show, anyone can go to Gamut Management, that's GAMUT management.com. If you want to be a part of our talent pool, not only are we working with the entertainment industry, but again, we also work directly with brands that we bring in and, of course, pay people with disabilities to share their opinions, their thoughts, their perspectives with brands directly to help create the best products possible.
And my friends, this is how you change the world. You follow Mindy's protocol. If you all are enjoying this podcast, please download, subscribe, share on Apple, Spotify, and we will be back next week with more Creating Victory. Get over it and make it happen. Mindy, I adore you. You inspire me. And thank you for changing the world.
Dora, you right back. Thank you.